I flew all the way to a New York courthouse to watch the TikTok DoorDash girl face a judge to only find out they moved the case to a higher court. So I guess I just had to pack up my bags and go home and wait. And it's safe to say we waited because months went by and nothing happened until the other day, as she's been hit with a full-blown felony indictment by a grand jury. And we're talking about Olivia Henderson here, aka the DoorDash girl, the TikToker who went viral last year for claiming she was SA'd while door dashing, when in reality, she filmed a dude passed out without clothes on inside of his own home and posted it twice for millions of people to see. And her case now has a major update because for a minute there weren't really many court updates. And trust me, I was checking. I mean, again, I literally flew out to New York thinking something big was about to happen in court. And when I got there, the case had already been moved up to a county court. So the whole thing just got pushed. From the outside, it seemed like nothing was really happening, but I guess it was just moving through the system. So for a while, this case just kind of sat there. And now she's officially been indicted by grand jury, which basically means that this is no longer just a TikTok drama or some sort of like TikTok situation, or I guess some messy viral story. This is a full-on criminal case that's moving forward. And the part that really stuck out to me is the fact that the charges didn't even change whatsoever, which means, I mean, she's still facing the exact same 2 felonies that she was arrested for: unlawful surveillance and posting that footage online. So the prosecution looked at everything, the video, the investigation, all of her own posts, and essentially they said, yeah, we're not dropping anything, which is not great for her because if you remember how this whole thing started, this was supposed to be her calling out another guy. This was essentially her victim story in her own words.
I was working. I was literally working and they deactivated me. This is related. They just punished me for posting about my while door dashing. They just fired me and the police are doing nothing.
But now it's sitting in county court with felony charges and a path that could very realistically lead to trial. So let's rewind just for a second, because the way the whole thing started is honestly why I guess it blew up in the first place. Because back in October of 2025, she was working as a DoorDash carrier, and a customer orders food, selects leave it at the door. I guess nothing out of the ordinary, but when she gets there, that's where this whole situation starts, because she's claiming the door was open and she could see him laying on the sofa without clothes on. Now, the prosecutors are saying that he was passed out drunk, and they're currently arguing on if she pushed the door open a little bit or what actually happened. And let's be real, that's a very weird situation. Nobody is saying that's a normal walk up or a normal order. Hopefully this doesn't happen too often. But where people started having problems with this whole story was, you know, instead of going, oh, okay, that's really weird, dropping off the food, backing away and maybe calling someone to check on him or going on with your day and just continuing with the orders, she decided to pull up her phone and film him and expose him and kind of show where he lived and said his name.
Sir, I have your DoorDash. Oh! Ew! What the? Ew! I'm a victim!
And no, she absolutely did not blur him out. She just posted that straight up on TikTok. So Olivia didn't give him any grace whatsoever and thought that he immediately did that with malicious intent. And that video ended up doing insane amounts of views. I mean, tens of millions of views almost immediately. Now, at this point, she's telling the internet that she's the victim here. She's saying this guy put her in danger. She's saying that she was assaulted. And for a minute, people believed her. But that didn't really last too long, because almost immediately things started not adding up, because within days, the narrative around the whole case began to shift, because the video was taken out on TikTok for violating its policies. So what did she do? Well, she, I guess, censored him briefly and then re-uploaded the same video, still showing his address and saying his name, which isn't really ideal either. And that's when questions started actually circling about what actually happened inside of that home. And at the center of all this was one key detail: whether the front door was truly wide open, as she claimed, or whether she opened it herself. And I guess that distinction ended up mattering a lot, because a lot more information came out. Reports pointed to a doorbell camera footage actually appeared to show her pushing the door open before filming inside. Now, to my knowledge, we haven't had that confirmed by a prosecutor yet. That's what I wanted to see in court. But at the same time, police also began their own investigation into the incident. But according to their findings, the man inside their home was not engaged with her at all. He was intoxicated, unconscious on the couch, and unaware that any of this was happening. So investigators concluded that, you know, no SA occurred. And the conclusion directly went against the claims that she had been making online, which had initially been presented as a dangerous encounter during a delivery. And now the whole case is being treated as her unlawfully filming someone within their house and distributing it on the internet. And DoorDash addressed the situation as well. And the company stated that sharing a video of a customer inside their home, along with identifying details, violated its policies. And both the driver and the customer was removed from the platform as a part of this response. Then, about a month after the incident, the legal consequences started. So on November 10th, 2025, she was arrested and charged with 2 felonies: unlawful surveillance for recording an individual without consent, and dissemination of an unlawful surveillance image for posting, the footage online on TikTok. She then later appeared in court, entered a not guilty plea, and the case was moved forward through the system. And that's when the judge made his quip because she asked for no cameras in the court, and he went, wait, so now you don't want cameras? But after the arraignment, the case was moved out of the city court and I guess up to a county court, which is, I guess, standard for felony charges. But from the outside looking in, it just felt like nothing was happening because there was no new statements from her or posts. But behind the scenes, the case was still working its way through the system because in New York, before a felony case can actually move forward to trial, it typically has to go through a grand jury. And that's exactly what happened. A grand jury reviewed the evidence presented by the prosecution privately and came to one key decision. There's enough evidence here to formally charge her and move the case forward. And that's what the indictment is. It's not a conviction. It doesn't mean that she's been found guilty, but it does mean the case has cleared its first major legal hurdle. It doesn't really look like the prosecution took any shortcuts here either, because they didn't go with a faster route that sometimes signals that both sides are working towards a quick resolution. Instead, they took the case to a full grand jury, which can be a sign they're taking this seriously and potentially preparing to push it further. So what happens next? Well, now we get into the whole thing of what she's actually facing here, because this is where a lot of people hear 8 years and immediately think, uh-oh, she's going away for a decade. That's probably not happening. She is facing 8 years though. So technically, yes, she's charged with 2 Class E felonies, and in New York, each of those carry a maximum sentence of up to 4 years each. So obviously, if you stack them together, you get that headline number of up to 8 years, but that's the maximum. If you've watched any of my videos here on this channel, you know that people tend not to get anywhere near the maximum. The only way for this to happen is if there's like a whole bunch of aggregating factors. And it seems like after Olivia's first, burst of social media content, she, kind of quieted down and is now playing this smarter at least. And from what we know, she's a first-time offender. She hasn't been sitting in custody this whole time, and these are non-violent charges. So under New York law, the court does have other options beyond prison. Things like, probation or I guess a conditional discharge. So realistically, even if she's convicted, there's a very real chance that this ends up with probation instead of prison time. Now, does that mean that she's in the clear? Absolutely not, because a felony conviction, whether you serve time or not, sticks with you. We're talking about, employment, housing, background checks. That's not ideal. That still follows you. And then there's the other issue here, which honestly is one of the biggest problems for a defense. The evidence. She kind of, did what she's being accused for and posted it online. So, yeah, because again, she's not being accused for breaking into the house. She's being accused for filming the video and posting the video on TikTok, which is what she did. So that's going to be hard for her to argue. And not only that, she posted it twice, and then she went online and talked about why she posted it. And at one point, this was her way of getting justice by exposing him publicly. So again, that's not good, and it shows intent with posting this. So this is definitely an uphill battle for her to fight. And I guess at this point, there's only a few ways this can really go. The first, and honestly the most likely, is some sort of plea deal. I know I said settle in my live stream I did on this. I was just coming off of a very jet-lagged flight. I came off of a 13-hour flight and I was in a layover, and I made that live stream. So my brain was not firing. I wasn't playing with a full deck of cards at that point. My bad. Plea deal. The reason I'm saying plea deal is because in situations like this, especially when the evidence is this public, taking a deal early usually leads to a better outcome because you just have less risk, lighter sentence, and the case gets resolved without going all the way to trial. And the judges tend to look more favorably on defendants who take responsibility sooner rather than later. But then the second option is to try to fight out the indictment, which would mean that her attorney would file motions to dismiss, arguing that there's not enough evidence or that something about the process is flawed. But realistically, that's an uphill battle. Because again, it's hard to argue that the video doesn't exist and wasn't posted because millions of people have seen the video. So definitely not an easy route. And obviously, after this whole criminal trial, the guy can still sue her. So her problems are not over. But regardless, if they try to fight this, it really just comes down to whether a jury believes the prosecution has proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And the longer the case drags on, the less generous a plea deal is going to get. So if she has the opportunity earlier and didn't take it, that could come back to hurt her. Her next court date is currently scheduled for early May 2026. And that's where we'll start to get a clearer picture on which direction this is all heading. And I feel like my take on this is, yeah, that's a messed up situation. No one wants to stumble into this, but like her response was absolutely insane because instead of leaving or reporting it, you know, or just doing her job and moving on, this became content and now it's evidence. I mean, she went to TikTok way before she went to the police. Like, there's just so many things that are wrong with this. So, I mean, at this point, I guess it's just a waiting game. At least she isn't facing multiple decades in prison like this idiot TikToker, because, I mean, this story is just crazy, which I would heavily recommend checking out here. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.